Hello, I'm Belinda Hatt and I work in the Applied Research Team in Integrated Planning. My role is seconded to the Melbourne Waterway Research Practice Partnership, and I'd like to give you an overview of a new research project that we've developed in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. We're really interested in understanding if and how the lockdown has changed the way that residents of Melbourne engage with blue spaces. Now, blue spaces are public open spaces, they're both natural and constructed, where water is a prominent feature. And in the context of this project, blue spaces refers to the waterways, wetlands and estuaries that we manage at Melbourne Water. There's a growing body of evidence for time spent in natural outdoor environments having positive impacts on both physical and mental health and well-being. It's not just physical exercise that we need to preserve health, but also engagement with the environment and with nature. And so we're starting to see recommendations like 120 minutes of contact with nature per week to support people's well-being. In response to this growing evidence, we see increasing numbers of planning strategies that advocate for the accessibility of natural environments in urban settings for health outcomes. For example, our Healthy Waterway strategy identifies 3 types of social values associated with our waterways, wetlands and estuaries. Amenity, because they're places where people can go to relax, escape normal life and the busy urban landscape, and appreciate nature. Community connection, because they provide settings where people can join together for social interactions, to learn from the environment, and to engage with art and culture in significant places. And recreation, because they provide settings and opportunities for people to pursue both active and passive activities in their leisure time. The value of public open space has dramatically increased as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. All around the world there have been headlines about people flocking to parks and other green spaces as a safe way to get out of their homes, to exercise and to maintain the social connections that are so important to all of us. And I'm sure these scenes of busy parks are familiar to all of you. Our own anecdotal evidence is that many of our creeks have become superhighways during the lockdown. We've seen some quite positive news stories like this one about locals picking up litter around the Mary Creek during lockdown. But this sudden surge in the use of public open spaces also highlighted the unequal access to it across our cities, and this is likely to have made residents of those areas with low public open space more vulnerable to the impacts of the pandemic. Human movement data allows us to quantify just how popular public open spaces have become as a result of the COVID-19 restrictions. Google has been reporting on community mobility all around the world, and this can be disaggregated by different location types and by local government area. This example here of movement in the Banyule local government area through September and October shows very large increases in the number of people using local parks compared to the typical baseline. Now, Neighbourlytics, which is a global urban tech company that uses public social data to characterise the digital footprint of cities, recently released a report called The New Local. And in that report, they showed that people have been seeking out natural spaces rather than streetscapes and urban spaces during the lockdown. This is particularly evident in Melbourne, where there was a 112% increase in engagement with natural spaces between February and May this year. Now, neither of these reports are specific to blue spaces, but blue spaces are included in this broader category of natural spaces, so they give us some clues about what's going on. However, this year's Community Perception Survey had some surprising results. 33% of respondents reported less frequent visits to waterways in the last 12 months, and this increased to 42% reporting fewer visits in the second week of the second lockdown. And so this gets us to the reason for this research. We want to dig deeper to really understand how the COVID-19 restrictions have changed community awareness of and engagement with Melbourne's blue spaces. We want to know which blue spaces people have been visiting, when they've been visiting, and why they've been visiting. We also want to know what they've got out of those visits. For example, have blue spaces helped people maintain their resilience throughout the lockdown? And if engagement with blue spaces has changed, we want to know whether people think this will continue post-lockdown. Now, the anticipated outcomes for this project are an increased understanding of the most and least used blue spaces across Melbourne before, during and after the COVID-19 restrictions, as well as an increased understanding of community expectations regarding the quality of and access to blue spaces. And we think this information will help Melbourne Water make more informed decisions regarding where and how to maintain or increase the social value of blue spaces. So, for example, we think it could help do things like test and add value to the conceptual models for the social values of waterways, which is one of the models that underpins the Healthy Waterway strategy. I think it could help assess the impact of some of our programs. So, as an example, we need to report on the social or recreational value of our environmental watering programs. It could help identify where there might be opportunities to increase positive community engagement with blue spaces through our education and citizen science programs. And it might even help do things like identify opportunities to open up blue spaces in areas that otherwise have low open space. The way that we're proposing to answer our research questions is through a survey combined with a mobility analysis. The survey is a mix of quantitative and qualitative research questions, and there's some overlap with this year's community perception survey, so that there are strong links between the two surveys. And so this will allow the results of this current survey that we're proposing here to augment the community perception survey. So in addition to those common questions between the two surveys, we're also going to ask participants really targeted questions about how their use and awareness of local blue spaces has changed as a result of the lockdown, if and how their use of blue spaces have been of benefit to them, and how they think they might engage with blue spaces post-lockdown. The survey is prepared and it's ready to go. We're just finalising university ethics approval, and then we'll be ready to distribute it through our academic, professional and social networks. So stay tuned, because we'll be asking for your help in promoting this survey so that we can maximise the number and diversity of respondents. The other piece of work that we propose to do, and this is something that's got me really excited, is to map human movement around our blue spaces before, during and after the lockdown. Now, we've recently purchased 2 years worth of human movement data beginning from June last year. And this data covers our entire operating area, and it's disaggregated to a 153 square metre grid and 3-hour time slices. So to give you an idea of what this data looks like, this is an example from part of Adelaide, and each cell in the overlying grid has been colour-coded according to the number of people detected in that cell in that time step. So the more intense the red, the more people were in that cell at that point in time. So for the Melbourne data, we'll be able to drill into this data to quantify how many people were in and around our blue spaces across our whole region. And it's really exciting because it will give us a much more detailed picture of what's going on than any survey ever could. The survey is still really important though, and it's complementary to this work because it will allow us to understand why people were there. And to finish up, I want to introduce the project team. So the core research team is made up of Megan Farrelly, who's an Associate Professor of Human Geography at Monash Uni. Then there's Stephanie Laveau, who's a Senior Lecturer at Melbourne Uni, and her work focuses on the social and cultural aspects of environmental management. And Peter Bark, who's a postdoc at ERVAG in Switzerland. And Peter works on integrated planning models for sustainable urban water infrastructure, and he was formerly at Monash Uni. And finally, there's myself, Belinda Hatt. And as I said at the start, I work in the applied research team in integrated planning, but I'm seconded to Melbourne Uni. So we're really pleased by the interest that this project has already received from multiple parts of Melbourne Water, as you can hopefully see from the list of Melbourne Water names here. And we're looking forward to actively working together on this project. So thank you for listening to this presentation, and if you have any feedback or questions or you'd like to get involved, please do let me know.